Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 18 of the train station. As always, I am your host, A-Train. With me, as pretty usual now, is Derrell.
What is good, everybody?
And today, I know the season started already, but we're going to give our thoughts and opinions on the NFL season and give our playoff predictions and Super Bowl champions and all of that. But before we get into any of that, I just want to say, if you haven't watched already, now's going to be the time. Expect some great new things coming from the channel. I'm completely revamping everything. The logo is going to be revamped. The channel is going to be revamped. The Discord's going to be revamped. Everything is going to be revamped. It's going to be a fresh out new look. I've been doing this for about a year and a half now, so I just feel it's time to change things up. So get excited. We got a lot of great new content coming. It's also going to be a lot more of streaming on Twitch before it hits the YouTube. I kind of want to grow my audience over there as well. So it's just going to be a lot of things to look forward to. Some new things coming. Because many of you know that I did move, so in the process of moving, I kind of always had this idea to revamp, and now that I kind of have more time on my hand and I've kind of settled in and learned how to kind of manage my schedule, I'm going to be revamping things, going to be going live on Twitch to do the podcast. Maybe it grows into something more from there, maybe not, but it's just a way for me to grow my audience more than just YouTube. So if you guys aren't watching on YouTube, you guys will have the chance to watch me live on Twitch. Make sure to follow the channel's Twitter page at Train Station Pod. Make sure to follow the Instagram. You can follow my pages, which all of you know, to better keep up with everything going on. The revamp's not going to happen for a couple of weeks yet, maybe about 2 weeks or so. It's going to take me a little bit of time. I'm still waiting on a few things to come together. But I just thought I would make my fans aware and my listeners aware that there is a revamp coming. There is bigger and exciting more things to come. And I just hope that you were all there on Twitch and all of YouTube on there to share it with me. So I just wanted to get that out there. And now we will get into our regularly scheduled program, episode 18, playoff predictions. Derrell, why don't you go ahead and start us off since I did all the talking there?
Well, I'm going to start off with who I believe is going to win all the divisions in the AFC and NFC. Now, we'll start with the AFC. This is kind of similar to last year, except with one change. At the AFC East, I have Buffalo winning it outright. I don't think Bill Belichick is going to make a comeback with Mac Jones. He should have kept Cam Newton, in my personal opinion, and they've kind of been slapping Cam in the face saying, oh, Mac Jones' girlfriend knows the playbook. But I got the Bills of Buffalo winning the AFC East. In the North, I have the Cleveland Brownies winning. And as we speak right now, the Browns are sticking it to the Chiefs right now, 22-10. And I just believe that it is now time for #BelieveLand. In the south of the AFC, I have Tennessee. Tennessee, they are always a 10-6 team in my heart, but I think this year they will go 11-5. With Houston being just absolutely trash and everyone else being as dead can be, I have Tennessee just outright winning the South, and they'll probably lose in the divisional, as always. And in the West, unanimously give me the Chiefs of Kansas City. In the wild card, I have Baltimore, Miami, and even LA. I think Justin Herbert's time has come for him to bring back a bolt of surge, pun intended, to LA. But overall, I believe that Kansas City will come out on top in the AFC to win the championship and go back to the Super Bowl for the third straight year in a row. And who will they probably face in the NFC? Well, we'll start off with who wins the NFC East. Some things just never change, do they? I got Washington, the Deadskins, but they're called the Washington football team.
Speaking of, I know this is a little bit off topic, but there was an article out that they have kind of decided on a team name. What do you think their new team name is going to be, or do you think they keep the football team?
It's probably going to be something stupid. So, like, maybe the Washington Guardians. They're probably going to follow suit with Cleveland. In my personal opinion, they should have changed it to something Native American related, something more respectable, like the Tomahawks or Thunderbirds. Something that brings a little more flavor and says, hey, we respect your culture, rather than just saying, oh, Indians, Redskin. But knowing Rob Snyder, or Rob, whatever the heck his name is, the owner, it's going to be something stupid. So I'm just going to say it's going to be dumb off the bat.
All right, let me ask it this way then. What do you want to see them be named? Like, instead of what you think it's going to be, like, what would you like to see? Like, would you like to see, like, Red Wolves or, like, Presidents or football team or...
Based off of the geographical placement where they are, something like the Presidents would be cool, kind of like how the Washington Nationals are. They were once the Montreal Expos. I would say, bring back the Washington Senators or the Washington Bureau. I don't know. Something DC related, but cool, in my personal opinion.
So, honestly, because of the whole, controversy around the Redskins name, and, we all kind of know how Dan Snyder is and the kind of person that he is, I think he's going to troll everybody and just keep the Washington football team. Because, that's just kind of the owner that he is, and I just personally don't think that they will change, but you never actually know what's going to happen, but I just feel like that's just the kind of owner that he is, that he's just going to troll everybody and just roll with the football team because he can.
In that case, God help us all. Whoever is in charge of his PR and marketing departments, for the love of God, fire them. You mean to tell me all these people getting paid this amount of money are so incompetent that they can't even pick a good name for a team? Come on now. A 5-year-old could pick a better name than them.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that, because it's kind of an interesting topic, to say the least, but you can go ahead and continue with your predictions.
Okay. All right, now jump to the NFC North. As always, the Packers will win it, and I believe this is Aaron's last year with the team. They had a little falling out, sort of, this offseason. I'm actually surprised he is back by popular demand, or unpopular demand, really. I think they'll win it, but it's going to be very interesting to see the team chemistry. Last I checked, they are playing right now against the New Orleans Saints.
Yes, correct.
And speaking of the Saints, let's go on to the NFC South. I don't think the Saints will win this year with the departure of Drew Brees.
Wow, there's some big news. I mean, they didn't win it last year either, but there's some big news for you guys out there, that he doesn't think that the Saints are going to be nearly as good without Drew Brees.
Oh, dude, they're going to be horrendous. They are going to be atrocious. I think Jameis will get them to at least 8-8 this year. Famous Jameis, he gives away too many picks like cupcakes at a bakery. Give me the Buccaneers, and I think that they might have the chance to repeat. But on to the West. I believe
a very good football division, by the way. All 4 teams in the NFC West are very, very capable of being Super Bowl contenders.
Very fantastic, to say the least. It's going to be an airtight division. For the love of God, I don't know why Matt Stafford said, hey, let me go out there. That's going to be a tough division.
There was actually a report out that the Lions were getting ready to trade him to Carolina, and he had actually said, no, I'm not going to go to Carolina. So just a little interesting tidbit on that is that they had a deal in place to send him to Carolina.
Yeah. Translation: if you send me to another losing team, I'm going to haunt you bastards. It's his words.
I think, as far as that goes, I think kind of Matthew Stafford Matthew Stafford is very underrated and gets a lot of unnecessary hate as far as, stuff like that goes. Matthew Stafford carried that Lions organization as far as that man humanly possibly could. There was not much more that man could do.
I saw a stat where Matt Stafford is horrendous against teams over 500.
But here's the thing. Why that's a misleading stat, though, because it takes more than Matthew Stafford to win the football game.
Ever since he entered the league back in 2009, I have this stat to back up. Matthew Stafford, ladies and gentlemen, is 8-67 against teams that finished the season with a winning record. Think about that.
Yes, but is it all completely on Stafford, or is it the Lions and their failure of an organization, which that's a different conversation for a different day.
See, both sides want to be right on this.
But there's only one correct side. Look at the Lions' history.
It's like that
Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders, now Matthew Stafford. When does it end? At some point, it's not the players anymore. It wasn't the players with Barry. It wasn't It wasn't the players with Calvin, even though Calvin does get a lot of hate, and it's well-deserved, by the way. But again, that's a different conversation for a different day.
Now, why is that well-deserved?
The dude signed a 7-year contract, didn't want to play through it, so Lions said, hey, can you give us a little bit of your signing bonus back? And then he's like, well, can I just keep the money?
Look what happened with Barry Sanders. He left early, too. He faxed his retirement. He said, yeah, I'm good.
Yes. He took off.
Okay.
But yes, I think Matthew Stafford deserved the organization did right by Matthew Stafford to trade him, because they didn't trade Calvin, they didn't trade Barry, so they did right to trade Matthew Stafford. That is the one thing the organization did get right.
Now, in an interview, Stafford said, in an article, I can confirm that he said that he wanted to go to LA because he wanted to win, quote, big games. I'm sorry, Packers wasn't a big game for you? Those multiple times you went to the playoffs, those weren't big enough games for you? Okay, buddy. All right, that's not big enough. Let that sink in. For Lions fans, I'm not a Lions fan, but I'm just saying. Sometimes I want to see Detroit win.
Wouldn't we all love to see Detroit win? That would be, an absolute fantastic thing. But as long as the Fords, which again, this is a conversation, I'm getting kind of off topic here, because I'm trying to waste a little bit of time. But, it's one of those things where as long as the Fords own the Lions franchise, the Lions just will not be a successful organization.
God help the 313. Anyway, back to the predictions. Yes, San Francisco will win the NFC West in a tight race. Now on to the wild card. I have Seattle, potentially New Orleans, should the NFC East be just hot garbage, as the NFC North will be. And then I have the Rams as well in the NFC, in the wild card, potentially. Now, who wins the NFC Championship? According to Vegas, they have the Buccaneers favored. And you know what? After what I saw on Thursday, when they went up against Dak and America's least favorite team, I actually believe them. Give me the Buccaneers to win the NFC Championship.
Okay, here's a question for you, though. What did you see that they did that convinces you after 1 week that they're going to repeat? Yes, I understand. They brought back everybody on defense, but, or everybody on offense, excuse me. They brought back Antonio Brown. They brought back Gronk. They brought back Chris Godwin. They brought back Mike Evans. Obviously, they still have Tom Brady. But what from that game against a god-awful Dallas defense where Dallas scored 38 points, do you think, yep, they're going back to the Super Bowl? It's just we don't know enough just yet from the first week that they're convinced that I'm convinced that that they're gonna repeat. I'm not saying that they won't. You can't base it off of 1 week and simply say, yep, they're going back.
I hear you. I saw that was not your normal Cowboys team. That was an actual legitimate Cowboys team. That's a 9-7 Cowboys team. That was a little joke, but no,
fair,
seriously,
no, very fair.
That Cowboys team looked very good with Dak. They were pounding the rock. Ezekiel, he looked different. The O-line, it was okay. But their defense, led by Micah Parsons, very good. I liked what I saw, actually, from Jerry's boys. They look decent, and I actually think that they might have the potential to win the NFC East if they play their cards right and Mike McCarthy doesn't screw up. Now, that has a lot to play with why I think the Buccaneers have the potential to repeat, because they just look solid. Bruce Arians, he's got a better chemistry with Brady, and they know what it takes to get back to where they need to go. I have them favored. That's why. Just experience. Everybody's coming back. They look good. They looked in sync. And for that reason, I got the Bucs.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'm gonna. All right. So with everybody, with your playoff projections right there, who do you think are going to be some of the worst teams in the NFL this year?
I still believe Jacksonville is going to be bad.
Anybody else, or just you think Jacksonville?
I think the G-men of New York, the Giants, they're going to be horrendous.
Really? You think they're going to be bad?
I think they're going to be pretty bad.
You think they're going to be 4th place in the NFC East bad?
I think they'll be... Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow, that's a shocking take, guys, right there. He says the Giants are going to finish dead last in the NFC East.
Quite honestly, they might potentially just finish dead last. That O-line, from what I've seen, is pretty bad. You know what? Dead last, maybe it's between them and the Raiders. God knows what's going on in Vegas. That little experiment's already imploding right now. John Gruden, he needs to get his stuff together.
Correct. He really does.
So yeah, scratch that. I think the G-men are going to finish second dead last in the NFL, and I think first dead last will be the Raiders of Las Vegas, and I think the Falcons will be third.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bounce off of that with you before I get into my playoffs. I'm going to say who I think are going to be some of the worst teams in the NFL this year. I think, obviously, dead last, number 1 overall pick in the draft this year will be the Houston Texans. That roster isn't good, and your best player doesn't want to be there. Your best player also has those allegations put up against him. But when he is, and if those cases do in fact get cleared, and he still doesn't want to play for you. So just that off that alone, I don't think. And if you look at the rest of their roster's just not good. I think Houston will have the worst record in the league. I agree with you on the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders are good. John Gruden was building a good team, but I think after about year 2, he kind of just went completely left field, and is just, I understand he's trying to change the culture of what Raiders football is, because, the Raiders were known for they were kind of known as like the Dallas Cowboys of the West, kind of, grabbing all these jailbirds and, troublemakers and all of that. So I think that John Gruden is trying to change the appeal of what the Raiders are. I just don't think he's built good enough teams that when he had in Tampa when he won the Super Bowl, which really wasn't even his team either. So he's kind of overrated as a coach. I don't think they'll be second worst, but I think they will be. They'll be down there at the low. Jacksonville as well. I think the AFC South is really going to be determined by the Titans and the Colts. Jacksonville is still a very young team. Lots of young players. They're still working on the rebuild with Urban Meyer, so it's going to take them a couple of years to try and get Urban Meyer's team the way he wants it. And then I think the Lions are going to be a team that's very, very bad. That roster on paper is not good. If you watch their game today, their team just isn't good. Jared Goff is not the answer at quarterback. They have no legit outside threat. Their running backs are solid, and their offensive line is decent, but they just have no outside threat. Their defense is very young and inexperienced. So I think they'll also be down there. They'll probably be right up there fighting with Houston for probably the top pick in the draft. Another team I don't think is going to be that great is going to be I want to say the Jets, but I don't, or the Giants, but I don't think it's going to be the Giants. I think the Eagles. I know they won today and they looked impressive, but it was against who I'll also say is going to be at the bottom, a very bad Falcons team. So I think that the Eagles will be dead last in the NFC East. And it's going to be close, though, because the NFC East is still very, very bad. So when I say they're going to be the worst in the division, that doesn't mean that they're going to be, they could be 7-9 and still finish dead last, because the division could literally be 7-9, 7-9, 8-1, or 9-7, 9-7, Or,
Okay.
sorry, 10-7 now, or whatever it is. 17 games, yeah. So it could be 7-10, 7-10, 8-9, and then 8. The winner could have 8 wins, in the division. That's just kind of how the division is. Some other teams I think will be bad. I think the Jets, of course, will be bad. They're still rebuilding and doing their thing. The Atlanta Falcons, as I mentioned, will be bad. And I think this is a do-or-die year for both the Broncos and the Vikings. The Vikings have a good roster on paper, and there should be no excuse that they don't make the playoffs. But a lot of what the Vikings are going to do is going to rely on the arm of Kirk Cousins. How much do you trust Kirk Cousins to get you to where you need to be? Same thing with the Broncos. Their roster is good enough to win, but they kind of don't have that quarterback. You got kind of that bridge quarterback with Teddy Bridgewater. And, because Drew Lock clearly is just not the answer. The dude just isn't good. He's a terrible quarterback. And I don't see them making the playoffs, but I kind of see them being bad just because the rest of their division is just that good outside of Las Vegas. So, it's a do or die for those two teams, and I think those are kind of going to be the worst of the teams in the NFL this year. As far as playoff goes, I'm going to go opposite of you. I'm going to start in the NFC. I think Tampa Bay, like you said, will win the division, and I think watch out for the Saints. I know you don't think Jameis Winston is that good, but if you remember him in Tampa, he had 30 touchdowns and 30 picks. So if he can clean up those picks and make it kind of a 2-1 to 2.5-1 ratio to where he has 25 touchdowns and 10 picks, I think the Saints will be just fine. I know they're missing Michael Thomas for the first couple of weeks. Once he gets him back, they'll be even better. So I think the Saints and the Bucs will make the playoffs. Going out to the North, I think the Bears are close. I do. But how long are you going to stick with Andy Dalton? Is it going to be too late before you throw Justin Fields in there? I think Justin Fields is going to be an extremely talented quarterback. And so I think, how long do you wait if you're Chicago? Do you wait until, do you wait till week 13 and you're sitting there with 5 wins to throw Justin Fields in there to give him some game time? Or do you try Andy Dalton for the first couple weeks? If he starts to struggle, then do you throw Justin Fields in there? So I think the Bears just miss out on the playoffs, but that's just because I think they're going to wait just too long to throw Justin Fields into the game and try and have them win. But I do think they're close. Just like the Vikings, I think are close. Like I said, it's a do or die season for the Vikings. It all depends on Kirk Cousins and and the way he plays to get that, because Minnesota's roster is very good and Minnesota's roster is good enough to win, but like I said, do you trust Kirk Cousins? So I think Green Bay will be the only team in the North once again to make the playoffs.
I I I would trust Kirk Cousins with the Pepsi glass. That's it.
Going to the NFC least, Washington. News broke today that Ryan Fitzpatrick is hurt. We don't know how long he's going to be injured for. They didn't win today. If he has to miss an extended amount of time, like how if he has to miss an extended amount of time, how is that going to work? Do you go try to sign Cam Newton? Do you try to find somebody else? Because Tyler Heineke is not going to bring you to the playoffs. That defense, they have an outstanding defense. They have arguably the best defense in the entire NFL. But the offense they have great outside weapons. The running backs are decent, but can you make the playoffs? Even in the NFC East, can you make the playoffs with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tyler Heineke? I think you kind of have to figure the quarterback situation out. If they find a decent quarterback, maybe they trade for a guy like Nick Foles. I think Nick Foles would be good for a team like that. If they trade midseason for a quarterback, easily a playoff team, but I think they slide by the division. I think them and the Cowboys have very similar records, and they slide in. I think they win the division just by a hair, because what we've seen from Dallas, you're right, this looks like a legit Dallas Cowboy team. I know it's week 1, and I don't like talking positive about the Cowboys, but we saw a lot of great things from that Dallas team. And that is just, that's just a fact. So I think Washington wins the division, so they'll get in, and none of the rest of the NFC East will. I've already talked about the NFC South, so I'm going to go to the NFC North. Or I already talked about the North, and so the NFC West. The best division in football, point blank, period. All 4 teams have a chance to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, that is not possible. So once again, I think the one team that gets left out is the Arizona Cardinals. They're close. They're very, very, very close. But the 49ers got hit with the injury bug last year. I don't think they're going to get hit with it again this year. The Rams got rid of Goof. Yes, I called him Jared Goof. They got rid of Goof. They added Matthew Stafford, who we've already talked very, very highly about. They get better adding him. I know they lost a couple of guys on defense to the Browns, but they'll be fine. They'll make the playoffs. Seattle with Russell Wilson, you can never count them out. They'll make the playoffs, and I think the 49ers get in. So I think 3 teams out of the NFC West get in, with Arizona unfortunately being the only one left out. I don't have the matchups with me, so I don't know how that's going to work. I think Tampa Bay will end up with the number 1 seed. So I think it would be in the NFC Championship. I think it would go ahead and be Green Bay. I think it's going to be a rematch of last year. Actually, not really even that. I think Aaron Rodgers, coming down the end of the season, is going to you can kind of tell that he's going to be done with the organization. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Don't count out Russell Wilson. It's going to be Russell Wilson versus Tom Brady and the Bucs. And I think the Bucs will advance to the Super Bowl. I don't want to pick them, but, they're the Super Bowl champions for a reason. They brought everybody back. And I know I said, what have they done? They played a decent game week 1, but the defense looked horrendous. They also lost starting corner Sean Bunting. So they're going to have to figure that out. It's not easy to repeat in the NFL, but I don't know. The NFC is in a much harder place right now than the AFC. It's going to be much harder to repeat in the NFC, especially with the entire NFC West getting better. Green Bay always has Aaron Rodgers, can't count him out. I just think that, it's going to just be too much Tom Brady and company for anybody to handle. I think that Tom Brady and company go back to the Super Bowl. Then in the AFC, I mentioned it in the West, it's a do or die year for the Broncos. I think they just miss out. The Chargers very well could sneak in, and I think they will. Justin Herbert is a fantastic young quarterback. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. They'll probably have the best record when it's all said and done. The AFC North is where it's interesting because the Ravens have kind of got hit with the 49ers injury bug. They lost J.K. Dobbins. They lost their other they lost Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. They also lost another guy all within like a month. So like they lost two guys within a week and then another guy all within like a month. So they're hit bad with the injury bug. So I don't think Lamar Jackson is a good enough quarterback to have to deal with that kind of pressure to get him over the hump. So I think that the Ravens miss out and the Steelers take their place. And I think the Browns and the Steelers once again make the playoffs. And I don't think the Ravens do. And you'll see why I say that in a minute, because there's another team I think that could very well sneak in. The Bengals, not a bad team, but not there yet. In the AFC South, I think both the Colts and the Titans will make it. And then in the AFC East, I'm not a big Mac Jones guy. I don't think Mac Jones is going to be a great quarterback. But simply because Bill Belichick is there, the Patriots have a very good possibility to make the playoffs. Their schedule is very, very friendly, but I think the Bills still win that division. Miami also has a chance. They won 10 games last year and didn't get into the playoffs. I think that ends, and I think the Dolphins get in with the Bills, and then the AFC champion. And then in the AFC, it's hard because there is good teams that are probably going to disappoint. Don't count out this Indianapolis team. I think they're very good. Tennessee's very good, but it's really hard not to pick a rematch of last year. It really is, but I'm going to go out on a limb here. If the Cleveland Browns can win the division, they have a very favorable schedule. They can beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship and make the Super Bowl. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it's a very good possibility. Really, the AFC, and this is why I said the NFC is much more wide open than the AFC, because in the NFC, literally anybody can get it, but Tampa just turns to be the favorite, and there's much, harder teams, but the AFC, I don't know. I really don't know who's going to win it. It could be the Chiefs, because Patrick Mahomes is still on that rookie contract, but I highly, highly doubt, and I've already put the Bucs in the Super Bowl, that we're going to get a rematch of last year. It's not going to happen. And because it's the Browns, I don't want to put them into the Super Bowl, but, I have to change it up from last year. I just have to. So I think it's going to be the Bucs. I think it's going to be Tom Brady versus Baker Mayfield. I'm not saying the Browns will make the Super Bowl, just based solely off it not being a rematch from last year. I'm going Bucs-Browns.
All right.
And if I really wanted to get crazy, I would say that Seattle with Russell Wilson would be going all the way, and it would be Seattle versus Kansas City. So it's going to be, I'm going to just say it's going to be one of those two matchups. It's going to be Kansas City versus Seattle, or it's going to be Tampa Bay versus Cleveland.
Kansas City with potential.
Because like I said, the NFC is much, much better, but the AFC is much more wide open, if that makes any sense at all.
That makes perfect sense.
So the NFC is a lot tougher. It's going to be harder to win games, but the AFC, there's so many just kind of middle-of-the-pack average teams there that it could be like, what the heck? So yeah, I think I'm gonna give people two options. It's gonna be Bucks Browns or it's gonna be Seahawks Chiefs. If it's Seahawks Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes is getting another Super Bowl ring. If it's Browns Bucks, Tom Brady's getting another Super Bowl ring. And those are my NFL predictions. I had a predictor up. I was telling Derrell before this, I kind of had a predictor up, but it didn't save. And I wasn't going to run all the way through it again. So that's just kind of off the top of my brain. So yeah, those are 4 teams I'm going to give you that could potentially make the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. So yeah, it's probably going to be Tom Brady getting, 8 Super Bowl rings now?
Magic number 8 ball, yes.
Very possible. Like I said, if it's Bucks Browns, it'll be Tom Brady. If it's Chiefs Seahawks, Patrick Mahomes is gonna get it. It's just hard to see anybody beat those 2 teams, but I refuse to do a rematch of last year because it hardly ever happens in the NFL, unlike college football. And that's kind of the one thing that makes the NFL playoffs exciting. But those are my predictions. Those are Derrell's predictions. Make sure you tell us in the comments below what your predictions are going to be, what you think we're crazy about, some hot takes that we might have had, some hot takes you might have. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. The link to my Twitch will also be in the channel. As I said, we are going to be doing some exciting new stuff on there. And this has been episode 18. Make sure to check us out again. And again and again, I'm going to just keep saying it. Make sure to check us out. I will link both mine and Derrell's social medias in the comments, along with everything else. And that's all we got for you, folks. This has been another episode. I hope to see you guys for episode 19, 20, 21, and beyond.